and I'd associate with some of the comments of the Honourable Gentleman from Bury South, is particularly in relation to the work that his twin brother's doing, and in fact all those who are working in the front lines. I think that's something that we can all share a great deal of respect for. But I'm also delighted that our party have made time available today to discuss the scandal of the way in which the COVID-19 emergency contracts have been dished out by this government. We've seen the Prime Minister make an art form of stripping away the processes that protect fairness and transparency, all under the cover of the pandemic. The justification has tended to be the same across the board. Got to be done fast. It's in a hurry. But how far can that stretch? I've got no doubt that the procuring of goods at speed and scale was a challenge, and there are clearly things that had to be done to make sure that that could be undertaken. But to justify the bypassing of due process in the early days, it's not a catch-all or an excuse for the growing list of questionable contract decisions that were not open to a competitive tender process. A sense of right or wrong did not go out the window when the COVID virus came in, and there must always be time for proper scrutiny of money spent from the public purse, and the government must always be available to answer for their decisions. Perhaps the government will tell us today whether the VIP channels that were so roundly criticised early in the pandemic are still operating today, or who knew about them, who was on them, or where we can find out more about them. And thanks only to the National Audit Office that we know that the fast-track channels existed. It vastly increased your chances of successfully landing a contract. From over 15,000 suppliers, just 400 went through the VIP lane, and 1 in 10 of them received a contract, compared to only 0.7% through normal channels. I have plenty of talented and deserving constituents in Midlothian who would have been delighted to have that opportunity to have a leg up through a VIP channel and get a comfy government contract, but the door wasn't available to them, and it stayed firmly shut unless you happened to rub shoulders with the right people in the corridors of power. Details of the channels are certainly not advertised in the government's guidance, and many people, like medical professionals with invaluable experience of the NHS, were not even aware they existed. There's room for a fast track, I don't deny that, and if it's an emergency, we need to look at new ways of doing things. But it's absolutely absurd that having connections to a party of government is the criteria that is required to be on that fast track list. This should slow things down, not get you to the front of the queue. There are too many serious allegations of cronyism coming out now for this to be simply brushed aside or written off as a mere coincidence. And Transparency International UK has so far found contracts worth over £3.7 billion, or 1 in 5, between February and November of 2020, which raised red flags. According to their report, the government displayed apparent systematic bias in the award of PPE contracts that favoured those with political connections to the party of government in Westminster. There's an ever-growing roll call of examples of apparent cronyism coming from the excellent investigative journalism of people like Byline Times and Open Democracy and others, and we've already seen successful litigation from the Good Law Project over delays in publishing contracts award notices. The more you dig, the dirtier it looks. And the emergency excuse to bypass due process does begin to wear a little thin when it's from contracts with little to do with frontline emergency, like the £500,000 awarded illegally to Public First, old colleague and pals of the Prime Minister, Chancellor Duchy of Lancaster and Dominic Cummings, of course. Nor does the speed argument explain those early contracts being given to companies with such little experience in the field when a wealth of other suppliers have put offers in. Can the government tell us now why the crucial contracts for life-saving protection went to a Florida-based jewellery company or a wholesaler of sweets with no obvious experience of supplying PPE? What made the tiny vermin control operation Pest Fix, valued at just $19,000, the best-placed company to provide a vital $32 million order for isolation suits? And why did the former Health Secretary's neighbour and pub landlord get a £30 million contract for producing plastic vials following a few chats on WhatsApp? The Greenskill scandal and Dyson scandal demonstrate that this is a government which is overseeing a culture of taxpayers' money being dished out through informal back channels removed from public scrutiny. And if the government has nothing to hide, I would again make the plug, Mr Deputy Speaker, why did they not back my Ministerial Interest Emergency Powers Bill as it was in the last term of this Parliament? Because we accept the need for speed, but that doesn't mean we can't ask questions after the event. Week after week, business questions I've requested government time to debate many of these serious concerns about openness, transparency of the government, but the concerns are dismissed. In one response, the Leader of the House did put on his best poker face, I have to say, and assured me that we would have in this country one of the most honest public sectors in any country of the world. It's unfortunate that doesn't appear always to extend to all within government. If that is the case, it's badly being let down by the government and the culture of secrecy. This government claims it can't find support for 3 million excluded, nor can it afford to pay a decent pay rise for the NHS. Yet they found a staggering jaw-dropping £37 billion for private companies with connections to power to run a test and protect system that doesn't yet work properly, with consultants earning £1,000 a day. This is a system which we now know, thanks to the efforts again of the Good Law Project, that yet another VIP lane existed. It's an absolute scandal. The government may claim that people don't care about these issues because the contracts issues don't affect them, but they do. People see what's going on and they'll be scunnered by it all. And when faith and trust is lost in democracy, we're all lost. If the government is innocent on all charges, except of course the ones where they've already been found guilty, then they need the public inquiry into COVID contracts to press ahead now, not next year after the heat has gone from the issue. We need to have clear channels to scrutinise government actions and hold the executive to account. Standards in public life are the foundation on which democratic institutions are built, and we need the systems to root out anyone in public office who puts profit for themselves, their partners or their pals before public good. If it's ignored, corruption will fester and the small cracks will become fissures and the very foundations of our democracy will crumble. Mr Deputy Speaker, the government remains far too blasé in response to allegations of cronyism, and this cannot go unchecked. Like the ancient Romans, perhaps they still believe themselves to be untouchable, answering to no one, especially not those out with their VIP circles. But if they let the rot set in, the public will soon lose trust in their leadership. And if they don't stand up for decency, democracy and hand standards in public life, then we may be watching a current modern-day Nero see the end.